Newly recruited Russian reservists say a tearful goodbye to their families as they head to Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry said about 300,000 people would be summoned to active duty, but the order left a door open to many more being called into service. Most Russian men aged 18 to 65 are automatically counted as reservists. Meanwhile, mobilization activity is underway across Russia, with hundreds being drafted to fight in Ukraine. In Russia's far eastern region of Yakutia, an indoor stadium in the regional capital Yakutsk was turned into a collection center for the draftees, who will be sent further to the military units of the Eastern Military District. One of the draftees said he didn't expect to receive the call-up paper in the street.
I didn't expect it. I went to the kindergarten with my daughter and they gave it to me. I came here at once. I'm fine keeping calm. I won't be away for long, hopefully. My rank is a Marine. I served in Petropavlovsk 10 years ago. Of course, I'm ready to protect the motherland, but not now. Not this time for sure. I think it's not my war. It's probably the war of Russians and Ukrainians, not mine.
Amid rising public protests, police moved quickly to detain demonstrators who gathered in central Moscow to protest the partial mobilization of reservists. Demonstrations against the mobilization were held in several cities across Russia, with more than 100 participants arrested. In neighboring Armenia, where many Russians have moved after Putin's mobilization order, Russian Yerevan residents took to the Armenian capital streets to protest. Slogans were chanted and placards held up on the streets as Russia and Putin were panned.
It is absolutely impossible to go to Ukraine to fight against another nation. It is absolutely impossible to go and fight for Putin, his palace and his mob of thieves. And maybe some people can avoid consequences of refusing to go to war altogether. Some might be looking at criminal cases, detentions or whatever, who knows for how long. But you cannot take that step. I urge you not to take that step. Don't go for the recruitment office, don't sign any document in that regard, and don't pick up arms under any circumstances.
Drone footage of a snaking queue of cars at Russia's southern border is a reflection of droves of Russian men scrambling to exit the country. Similar scenes are visible at most of Russia's borders, with lines of traffic hours or even days long. At multiple border crossings, there are snaking queues of trucks and cars of people rushing out of Russia as the conscription drive speeds up. Thousands are walking out on foot. Tens of thousands of conscription-age Russian men have fled to neighboring countries in recent days amid growing fears that the Kremlin is likely to impose an exit ban in an attempt to retain manpower reserves. The sense of a closing window has led to unruly scenes on Russia's land borders with Georgia, Kazakhstan and Mongolia. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko on Monday condemned Russians fleeing mobilization as he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin for talks in Sochi.
I see that people are threatened with mobilization in Belarus. Some people in Russia started fleeing abroad, but Russia has a mobilization base of 25 million people. Suppose 30,000 or even 50,000 have fled, but would they be still our people if they had stayed? Let them run. They would also come back. It is just necessary to decide what to do with them, whether they should come home or earn their breads abroad as freelancers. Forgive me for speaking so openly. They can act like this. All in all, it's possible to reach an agreement here instead of fleeing to Europe or to the US, like it was during Bolshevik Revolution and after it. The situation is different.
On the other side, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky again called on Russians to not submit to criminal mobilization amid protests against Moscow's call to arms.
Будемо робити і особливий наголос. Наголос на тому, що злочинна
We will also make a special emphasis on the fact that criminal mobilization is used by Russia not only to prolong the suffering of people in Ukraine and to further destabilize the world, but also to physically destroy men, representative of indigenous people who live in the territories temporarily controlled by Russian Federation.
чоловіків, представників корінних народів. Ще раз хочу наголосити,
I want to emphasize once again, there is a way out. Do not submit to criminal mobilization, flee or surrender to Ukraine captivity at the first opportunity. I ask all friends in the information field to support and spread this appeal. The more citizens of Russian Federation at least try to protect their own lives, the sooner this crime war of Russia against the people of Ukraine will end.
Хоча б спробують захистити своє власне життя, тим швидше закінчиться ця злочинна війна Росії проти народу України.
In the 4 days since the announcement of Russia's first mobilization since World War II, about 260,000 men of military age have left the country, as per Kremlin sources. With tightened entry requirements for European Union countries bordering Russia, most of those leaving the country have been heading for the South Caucasus nations of Georgia, Armenia, as well as Belarus, Turkey and Central Asian countries.